check is proudly brought to you by First Capital Bank. Belief comes first.
All right, welcome to the health check. It is at 11:42. Zuzi way. It is 11:42, and on the line with me, I've got Dr. B. Hello, Dr. B.
Welcome back to the show, Zoo. I'm welcoming you back too.
Yes, I missed you guys last week. Hey.
Yeah.
How are you today?
We're good. I think summer's upon us now. I think the winter's sort of gradually faded away overnight. You know, we don't get spring here. We just get winter, and then suddenly you wake up and it's warm.
And it's hot. And I'm wearing shorts today, so yes, definitely, it is summertime. Okay, so today we're covering anxiety, and I had told the listeners that this is something that I have actually, suffered. So I want to hear the medical side of it because I had dealt with it in a more, interpersonal way.
Yeah, Zoo, it's actually more common than people realize. And just like you, I suspect people don't realize that it is a condition. And basically what it is it's almost like an excessive or exaggerated anxiety and worry about everyday life events for no obvious reason. People with of generalized anxiety tend to always expect disaster and can't stop worrying about lots of things: health, money, family, work, or school, if you like. And the general symptoms for those that want to ask themselves about themselves is a sort of a restlessness, a feeling you're always on edge. You're being tired, fatigued very easily. You have difficulty concentrating, and your mind goes blank. You get irritable. You get some muscle tension, and you often have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or even unsatisfying sleep. These are generally the symptoms of anxiety. And people will say, oh my God, I've got general anxiety. Well, all of us have these symptoms, but they usually are transient, they're momentary, they fade, within a couple of hours, or even the next day you feel better. But this is an ongoing situation where you literally wake up and you get restless, you're on edge, you feel tired, you start to panic. And what triggers it? Well, we don't actually know, but there are causes of and risk factors for generalized anxiety, and these include both environmental and genetic factors. There is a family history of anxiety. They can run in families, and I think with the recent pandemic, recent or prolonged exposures to stressful situations, such as the recent lockdowns we had in the last couple of years, can result in an increasing history of generalized anxiety. People, for example, get so obsessed with washing their hands and sanitizers, they literally don't go out of their house now, even though we're allowed to go out, because they're just so anxious about falling ill. So it's, stressful situations. It could be personal or family issues. It could be sometimes even excessive use of caffeine. You're so much on, so many cups of coffee, you just generalize, you get a sort of an, what's the right word, irritable. And you're just drinking more and more coffee to keep that irritability down, and which can make existing anxiety worse. So
you drink more coffee, Dr. Bagger. Won't that make it worse?
It does make it worse, but people actually, it becomes habituated where the initial stimulus goes away, and you need to go and get another one, and it's a bit like that with your energy drinks as well. And if it's left untreated, as some out there may know, for the majority of people with undiagnosed or untreated anxiety, there are many negative consequences, both to themselves and to society. And you can just think about them. It's a disability in terms of reduced ability to work, loss of productivity, and believe it or not, those that we refer to our psychiatric colleagues, the risk of high suicide, because you really can't get out and you start getting really depressed.
I was thinking that, yes.
So in some, we've now begun to understand that this sort of anxiety can actually affect the brain, and there are parts of the brain called the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. These are responsible for higher thinking, for foresight, for insight, for hindsight, and for memory. And all these things are beginning to come out on scans, that these are areas that are affected by chronic anxiety. So it is something that is really important. Somebody's asked here, since we're running short of time as usual, does anxiety lead to death? Even though panic attacks can feel like a heart attack or other serious conditions, it'll not cause you to die, but it'll cause you to get so depressed, and sometimes people, often want to take their life because of the depression that they're having. And somebody's asked, is anxiety a chemical imbalance? We're not sure, but we know that long-lasting stress can change the chemical balance that controls mood. The mood chemicals in the brain are known as serotonin and dopamine, and these can be affected in a long way. Somebody's asked here, what is the root cause? I can feel from what you said, Naka, that some of the symptoms I have, but I'm not sure why. And the answer is there are a multitude of sources that can be triggering the anxiety that you talk about, whoever the listener is. Again, it's the environment, it's the job, it may be personal relationships, medical conditions, traumatic past, even genetics. So if you're feeling some of the symptoms we're talking about, go and see your practitioner or even a psychologist or even a therapist, because it can be managed by many of us.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Is there more?
Yes, there is. There's, somebody says here, what do psychiatrists do for anxiety, Naka? You talked about psychiatrists. Well, in addition to prescribing medication for people with anxiety, psychiatrists are also qualified to provide what we call talk therapy, what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, where they sit down with you and they actually begin to tease out and dissect or unpack where the source of this anxiety is. And people often, they sort of sweep it under the carpet, and some people find that, years and years and years ago they were abused, or they were traumatized, or they were locked in a cupboard, or, they witnessed a very bad suicide or a bad road traffic accident, and as a result, they can't focus in life. And somebody's asked, what pills can I take for anxiety? Well, before you take any pills, go and see your doctor, because these things should not be taken over the counter. There are some pills that practitioners may use just to calm you down if you're really anxious, and these are known as anti-anxiety medications. The ones on the market here are Valium and diazepam and Xanax, and they are prescription drugs, and we only use them sparingly because they are habit forming, so that's important.
Yes.
Somebody says, Naka, I know so many people that are anxious and have the symptoms you talked about. Why is anxiety so common? Well, I think it's common because we're in a situation, with recession, with the pandemic, with unemployment. There's, unemployment, poverty, disadvantage, loneliness, work stress, you name it. There are increasing things in the modern age. Poor health, difficult relationships, violence, trauma. I can go on and on and on. Now are the things that affect most of us. And somebody says, what does anxiety feel like in your head? I've never had anxiety, but I can tell you what my patients say. They basically say it's like brain fog. It's an inability to think clearly. They have racing thoughts. They're ruminating. Basically means they're just thinking and obsessing about something.
One thing, yes.
And pressure in the ears or head. And it is, we as doctors know, anxiety is at an all-time high nationwide.
Definitely. Well, Dr. B, you did mention depression before, and I wanted you to differentiate the two for the listener, because I know some of us like to mix the meanings of the two. So how can they tell when they are going into a depression or when it's just an anxiety attack or anxiety?
Zoo, that's, I think you should have been a therapist. That is such a huge question that I've actually allocated to next week, because it's such a big subject in terms of depression. Not to steal into next week's show, but there's a huge difference between sadness and depression, just like there's a difference between, wealth and richness. So we need to talk about depression in much more detail. One other question here, does anxiety increase with age? I see it in my parents. Am I going to get it as well? Well, anxiety can be learned from parents. You can watch people, watch your parents, and if they're anxious, you tend to sort of habit form and mirror them. So that can occur. Anxiety does become more common with older age, as more problems occur with older age, health events, financial events, looking after kids, school fees, all sorts of stuff, so that's really important. Can anxiety affect teenagers? Absolutely, and it is something that people need to be aware of, that teenagers may not express the classic signs of anxiety. So if your child is, always
anxious,
up and about and anxious, go and see somebody, because these things are really important. Can yelling at a child cause anxiety? If yelling at a child is not a good thing, especially if it comes down with verbal put-downs and insults. These things can actually have long-term effects on the child with low esteem and later increased aggression. So this is all important, and if you have any of these things, if you're experiencing or observing them, please go and see your therapist. There are lots, both in the public and the private sector.
Yes. Well, Dr. Bhagat, I'm really, really excited. Not excited in the, yay, we're going to talk about crippling. No, I'm excited we're going to talk about these crippling mental health issues, because like you said, it's, going through them and not knowing what is going on is quite dangerous at a young age. So, yeah, I'm very excited for next week's conversation.
Cool, Zoo. We'll meet next week.
I will. Have a great Sunday. And that's Dr. Bhagat, making me feel like that my mental health issues were something that, at this time, at this point in my life, were not that big. And talking about it with him like this, and also seeing how I handle my life, it is it's a much better day. It's a much better time. But for those of you that have really been struggling with mental health issues, especially anxiety and depression, because he is right. There are a lot of things that are happening in this world right now that are breaking the everyday spirit of somebody. You can definitely hit him up on you hit us up on the health check. You can hit us up on our pages, and you can go straight to the Heart Foundation on Facebook if you want to talk directly to Dr. Bhagat. But let's not hold in anything anymore. Let's talk about our problems. Let's talk about our issues. Let's love on each other and definitely unify. It is time for me to go and shut it down on the health check. The next song that's coming up is DJ Cops featuring Zuziwe Mavuma with Hold On. And you better hold on to your light, yeah?
Health Check was proudly brought to you by First Capital Bank. Belief comes first.